Welcome to my coming out party as an insurance agent. Today we're going to get into insurance, and of course that is something that I know a lot about because I am an insurance broker. I have been for a long time, and this is something that I do day in, day out. I work with these kind of plans. So I'm really excited about today. You see whether you find it as fun as I think it's going to be, but I think you will. So let's get right into it. Last time we talked about the whole idea that within your corporation you are paying 50.67% tax on any passive income, which is terrible. So when we're talking about risks, what if I told you there was a guarantee that you're going to lose 50.67% on all your money? Would you consider that a high risk or a low risk? Probably very, very high, right? So when we're looking at planning, that's what we want to deal with. Yikes, that is very high, that 50.67. What are we going to do about it? So again, we want to take the risks out where possible, especially if those risks don't bring us any kind of return, right? So it's a return-free risk, when what we're really looking for is a risk-free return, right? So let's see if there's some way that we can flip that around where we can have at least minimal risk and high return instead of absolutely no return and very high risk, right? So let's have a look at that. So when we think about what we're going to do here, there's one vehicle, there's one asset that is just perfect for this job, and I already kind of gave it away at the beginning. It's insurance, it's life insurance, it's whole life insurance. This is the best asset if it's appropriate, of course. Everybody is always different, that you can have as a foundation for your balance sheet, I would suggest. And you might be thinking to yourself, wow, that sounds crazy. Why would I ever use whole life insurance as an asset on my balance sheet? Because the only people that's going to get that is my kids. I love my kids. I want them to get lots of money. I want them to be very happy. But I have costs in the meantime. I have to pay myself. I have to be able to live. I can't just put everything towards my kids. I have to focus on myself as well. I have to focus on my business. I have a responsibility toward my business. So enough about that. This is what you're thinking about likely. Traditional insurance has a very high death benefit. $9 of every one that you put into the insurance plan, or even $10 out of every 10 goes into the insurance plan. And only 1 or even 0 goes into the cash value. So of course that is a plan just to give the money to your kids. And I know you love your kids, but you need to do other things with it as well. So what we have done, what we need to do, and what we have done is we've flipped that around. So now we have a death benefit where every $1 of 10 is going towards the death benefit, and $9 is going towards the cash value. So you can see how we flipped that around, where something was really focused on insurance, now is starting to look a lot more like an asset. And because it's an insurance plan, it is tax deferred. You don't pay tax on the fact that you have insurance. You pay tax on certain assets that you've got within the corporation. This is still an insurance plan, So it's all tax deferred. So we've got an asset that's growing, tax deferred. So what it starts to look like, it's not, but what it starts to look like is a corporate Tfsa. And actually, it's got all the benefits, or many of the benefits, most of the benefits of an RSP and a Tfsa at the same time, because it's being held within your corporation. So this starts to look ideal from a tax perspective anyway. We've got an asset, we've got tax deferral, which offers most of the advantages of both a Tfsa and an RSP within our corporation. How could it get any better than that? At the risk of this sounding like a sales pitch. And this is why it's even better from this perspective. And of course, this isn't the only asset that anybody would put in their corporation. It's not meant to necessarily be better than every other asset. But for the job that it does within the corporation, which is being a foundational asset, there is no better asset than this one. I would suggest for most people, everybody's situation is different. So when we look at the type of investment we've got here, it's an institutional grade investment. And what does that mean? It means that it is highly, highly diversified. And it's diversified in a few different ways, which we'll get into. So it'll have things like bonds, real estate. It'll probably have some cash, some equities, mortgages, some kind of private placement. So what we see, and again, the proportions are not necessarily what the proportions would be in any single plan. This is just representative, but we see one side where these are the kind of traditional investments that you might see in any kind of mutual fund, any kind of traditional investment that you're used to. But on this side, we're dealing with more private equity types of investments. So we're looking at this side where we're taking very different risks. On this side, we take the market risks, the usual market risks that we're used to. What if the market goes down 80%? Then I don't have any of this value anymore. That's the market risk that we're used to. But on this side, we are not taking as much of a market risk. We're taking a liquidity risk. So this kind of diversification between two completely different risks really protects us a lot. And the reason the insurance companies can do this is because they have such long time horizons. We're dealing with over 100 years that they could potentially hold on to these assets, which is not something we can do as a normal investor, which gives them a lot more freedom with the kind of investments they can put in here. So when we look at these kinds of investments, we're looking at, as we said, hundreds of, well, at least 100 years anyway, of every year them giving a dividend. Every single year for, say, 100 years, giving a dividend. And these investments are also guaranteed. So they're very safe from an asset perspective. They're very diversified. And from a tax perspective, we've got all these tax advantages. So really, this is ideal for that foundation of our financial plan or of our balance sheet. That's a lot of information. Hopefully it didn't seem too salesy. I hope you got something concrete out of the whole example. Tomorrow we'll continue talking along these lines and show how this can be more and more effective within the corporation. And of course, I always welcome any questions you've got. Get in touch with me directly. This is general financial ideas. If you need any specific financial advice, you can contact me as well. Thanks, guys.